Thank you, girls, ladies, beauties, lovelies. I'm so happy with this room. Don't you love this room? Holy wow. And the decorations that were done, I believe, 2 nights running until 5 in the morning, I hear, by Estrelita and her team, the beautiful flowers. So I know we got up and introduced ourselves to others, and I'd like you to stand up again. Just do me a little favor. Stand up for a second. It's good to stand up because we're sitting a lot. I'd like you to turn to the person on the right and the left of you and the person behind you at the next table and say to them, I'm really glad you're here today. I'm really glad you're here today. I'm really glad you're here today. And after you've done that, you can sit down again. Thank you, my parents. That's very sweet of you, thank you. Now, doesn't that just feel so good? Just raising the vibration a little bit in the room, getting some exciting, positive energy going. A nice little lingering hug, not a bad idea. And you can carry that on a little later today. Thank you for indulging me in that little exercise. I want to start with a question because questions are always good. You know, as adults, we think that we have to know all the answers, but I like to think that if we have a good question, we'll get a great answer. So here's my question for you as beautiful businesswomen. Anybody here, as they're developing their lives in business, ever made a mistake? Put up your hand. Not everybody has their hand up. Wait a minute. I'm going to put both hands up. Right. I think it's something we share in common as people in business and actually as human beings. And I can tell you without talking to you one-on-one what your mistake is. Your mistake is you think you made a mistake. And the gift I want to give you today is to reframe the conversation you have with yourself around growing as a human being. Because we learned through conditioning that really isn't ours. Thoughts and ideas have been handed to you all of your life. And some of us believe that we are the sum of those thoughts and ideas, and they're very limited thoughts and ideas. Would you agree? When we think we made a mistake, we feel bad. We feel like we didn't get it right. We feel ashamed sometimes, and often we own our mistakes and wear them like, get this, a hair shirt. Imagine how bad that feels. But if we were to take that word mistake and break it down, it's a mistake. That's all it is. It's a mistake. In television, when Joel Haslam and I were doing Regional Contact, we'd go just about every week to the experimental farm. We made it look like we were out in the middle of nowhere, but we were actually at the experimental farm. Fooled you! 14 years of it. I love that. Anyway, and we had no script, and so we would do our on-camera introductions to the stories and to the show, and we'd do it many times, so many times that we had a full show of bloopers at the end of the season. And I'll tell you, we had more comments on that show than we did on the shows we produced during the season. So what I'm saying is you actually get as many takes as you need to get it the way you want it, whatever it is, in business, in your personal life, it doesn't matter. We know how to be hard on ourselves. We don't need anybody else criticizing how we operate because we're really good at that. But that is our limited thought. That's our beautiful thinking mind running the agenda. And my job as a mini disruptor is to inspire you to shift the conversation with yourself so that instead of seeing you made a mistake, you say, I need another take. I need another opportunity to get it the way I want it. Are you with me? Okay, I was having a conversation with my friend Brenda Mason, who's in the room today. I'll thank her in advance. Brenda Mason is a beautiful soul, worked at CJOH CTV Ottawa with her for many years, brilliant director. Now works with me on Refresh Your Passion as well. And Brenda and I were having coffee. I was telling her about some of the great projects I've been working on this summer, like I recorded my first book for Audible, really exciting, building a podcast, talking about big dreams and big ideas. And she said, Kathy, She looked me right in the eye and she said, stop. I want you to stand on your mountain and I want you to look back at what you've created. And she said the look on my face was as though someone slapped me. I was shocked because I'm always like you, thinking about what's next. What do I have to do? Haven't done enough. I got to be. This is how we're wired as human beings. And when we listen to that business all the time, we can't pause to appreciate where we are and where we've come from. So I want you to indulge me for a moment again and just close your eyes. Close your eyes and imagine yourself standing on your mountain, whatever that looks like for you and wherever you are on that mountain. And I want you to appreciate how far you've come. Whether it's that you got out of bed today or that you got dressed today, doesn't matter. You have created a life that's brought you here today, which is a beautiful thing. So I want you, as Brenda said to me, to take that and to own it. And I'll add to that, to celebrate it. You can open your eyes. So while we are conditioned to own our mistakes, quote unquote, and what that means really is just to take ownership and responsibility for our actions. That's all. And when we say that, it's a lot easier, and we can then learn from our experience. That's the purpose of life, in my view, is just to learn and grow. Maya Angelou said it beautifully when she said, when we know better, we do better. So when you learn from your experience, you'll course correct, you'll pivot, you'll find another path, you'll do something, you'll maybe, if you're courageous enough, even ask somebody for their opinion and get some support. So I think we really need to just slightly adjust the lens we have on life to tone down the inner critic, to calm that inner chitter-chatter so that we can be in charge of what's going on in our lives. I now teach a workshop called Owning Your Fabulousness. Doesn't that sound great? And I've taught many women not to learn a new skill, but to remember who they really are, to awaken and become more aware of our natural abilities as women. We are the true leaders in this world. We teach children their values. That's a big responsibility. And while we may not get credit for it, that is the pure and simple fact. So we need to own that truth about ourselves. And owning your fabulousness just means really stepping into what I call your true power. So what does that look like? Well, we talked earlier about gratitude and appreciation for what you already have in your life. You see, our society is so hell-bent on us not having enough. Marketing is king. We're always looking for that new job, new car, new purse, new phone, blah, 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 blah. And if we don't have it, there's some part of us that might feel less. But the fact of the matter is, when you get into deep appreciation for what you already have, beginning with your breath, anything is possible. Because you recognize there's a power greater than you, there's an energy bigger than you working with you to create the life that you have. So what do you want? Owning your fabulousness is about getting clarity around that. You'll know what you don't want because you're complaining about it every day. That's your cue. I don't want that. Well, then if you don't want that, what do you want? And then you start to focus with your thoughts, words, and actions on what it is you want. Knowing your why. Why do you get out of bed in the morning? Why do you do your business? Why do you go to your job? That's a key question, because when we have hidden agendas from ourselves, we're not able to achieve what it is we really want. I know what I want. I want abundance, beauty, joy, love, peace, prosperity, and wellness. Isn't that great? I've done the work to excavate. What do I really want? I want that for you, and I want that for me. So I have to line up my thoughts, words, and actions with what it is I want in order to get that result. I'll leave you with a couple of thoughts. Marianne Williamson, the great contemporary American philosopher, said this: our greatest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our greatest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. That's what fear does. It holds us back from living the unlimited possibilities waiting for us to become aware of. So today, as you're socializing, as you're celebrating, as you're making new friends, try giving yourself away to somebody else. Ask yourself this question. Instead of, what can I get today? Ask yourself, what can I give? How may I serve you? And there will always be an answer. If you see something that makes you feel good, tell that person. If someone says something that resonates with you, tell that person. If somebody's got a nice purse, nice shoes, nice hat, tell them. Shift the energy of how you've been operating in your life, and you'll start to shift the result so that you too can own your fabulousness. Thank you. Darpin! Well, what do you think so far? So far, so good? I think your mind's probably about to be blown. Our next speaker was fearless in the pursuit of what set her soul on fire. She wanted to be an infantry officer and command troops in operations all over the world, even if it had never been done by a Canadian woman before. This is what she accomplished. Top cadet on her parachutist course, graduating top of her class in infantry training, early promotion to captain. She was called outstanding by her leaders and was ready for an amazing career in the military. But years of abuse, harassment, and rejection forced her to leave the only career she ever wanted. She left the military and became a director first at General Motors and then at Bombardier Aerospace. The military, however, never left her. She served on boards for employment equity in the Canadian Armed Forces, the Military College, and the Pearly Rideau Veterans Health Center. She coached the national shooting team for the Commonwealth Games in England and seized every opportunity to hold on. Now that's resilience. When Sandra Perron chose to write her story, she left no secrets out. It wasn't a pretty story. It was terrifying to tell her truth. Sandra feared that she would become an enemy of the Army, something she was still very loyal to. In 2017, at the Canadian War Museum, over 350 military personnel showed up to stand by her side as she launched her book, Outstanding in the Field, including the Minister of National Defense and 7 of the top 9 female generals. Amen. Now that's courage, and that is solidarity. The book has taken her to many interesting places and many yet to come. Please join me in welcoming Sandra Perron.
I will admit that I have never spoken to this many women. Holy moly. Of course, that doesn't change what I have to say. The message stays the same. But long ago, I learned to tailor what I have to say for the group. When I was an assistant operations officer in Bosnia, I had to give a briefing to a Dutch battalion coming in to take part of our area of responsibility. And so we had a Dutch communication center in our camp. So I went to see the boys there and I said, "Hey guys, can you teach me how to say, 'Good morning, welcome to our camp' in Dutch?" And so they taught me, "Heilige Strumpf, het is Mausman." And so I practiced for about 5 days. Finally, this battalion commander, full colonel, comes in with all his senior staff. And I looked right at the battalion commander and I said, "Heilige Strumpf, het is Mausman." Dead silence. And in the back of the room, this major bursts out laughing. I thought, that's so rude to laugh at my accent after I've been practicing for 5 days. Anyways, I continued in French and English, and my own battalion commander seemed to be pretty proud of me. And at the end, when it was all done, this major comes up to me and he says, "Captain, why do you say that? Heilige Strumpf hätte ich für Mauschmann." And I said, well, because I said, "Good morning, welcome to our camp." He said, no, you say, "Holy shit, it's Batman." True story. So, all this to say that I'm going to stick to English today. On March 15th, 2017, at 9:15 in the morning, my editor, Mark Cote from Cormorant Books, called me and said, "Congratulations, your book just went to print. There's not a word left to change. Everything is done. It's gone to print, and you're launching in 3 weeks. And we have a movie deal on the table." I was so elated, so happy, so relieved. And at 10:15 of that same day, I was in the hospital, thinking that I had a complete mental breakdown. And the doctor said, "It's just an anxiety attack." And I said, "No, it isn't. I've never, ever had anxiety in all my life. You don't understand. I've been to war. I've commanded troops. I've lost soldiers. I've never, ever had anxiety." And he said, "Well, welcome to the world of anxiety." I spent the next 5 days, I actually got in my car, drove 17 hours to Charlotte, North Carolina, where my parents were for the winter. And I ended up 5 days curled up on their couch with no food, nothing to drink, thinking I was completely losing my mind. And then I began a journey. And I want to share that journey with you today because it's a very, very special journey. Before I began writing this book, I went to do a vipassana, 10 days of meditation. Anybody familiar with a vipassana? So it's 10 days of complete silence where you're not even allowed to make eye contact with anybody. You're not even allowed to read, check your emails, have anything electronic. By day 2, I was reading the back of my shampoo bottle because I needed stimulation. And at 9:30, it's for 10 days, at 9:30 or 8:30 at night, after you've meditated all day long, you get a lesson. And on day 2, that evening's lesson was about compassion and how when a driver cuts you off on the road, that you have to have compassion because you don't know that person's story. And maybe they never learned how to drive, or maybe they didn't have a parent that could teach them, or maybe they're going to visit a parent in the hospital, or you just don't know their story. And I'm thinking, yeah, you know what? If somebody cuts me off, I'm going to flip him the bird. And probably a few expletives. Well, by day 3 and 4, I thought, okay, I have to develop this compassion muscle because that's the tone I want in my book. And so there was this woman in the Vipassana who made a lot of noise. And I'm not very good at meditation. I had to work really hard at it. So this woman was making a lot of noise, and she would settle down in her position, and she had a little wood stool that would always fall down and make a big bang. And then just as I was starting in the meditation phase, she would go, and then cough. And I was so mad and so frustrated because I was trying really hard to meditate. And after about day 6 or 7, she did those same noises, and I began laughing and saying, this is the universe sending me this very special, precious being to work my compassion muscle. So at the end of this Vipassana, day 10, we're allowed to talk. And so I went up to her, and her name was Miriam, and I said, "Oh my goodness, Miriam, you had ants in your pants." And she looked at me, and she started signing. She was deaf. And so I understood why she was making noise. And I got it. I got the compassion muscle. And I understood then the tone I wanted to set for this book. That everybody has a journey. And the people on my journey in the military who abused me, who harassed me, who rejected me, had their own journey. And that's how I wrote my book. I have learned 3 very important lessons. Well, many more than that, but 3 that I would like to share with you today following my book. And the first one is, you cannot be at peace with yourself. You cannot love who you are without loving everything that has happened to you. The good, the bad, the ugly, the flabby, the floppy, the parts missing, the parts that don't work well, and everything that has happened. That is the compassion muscle for others, but also for yourself. The second lesson that I learned was that occasionally the universe rejects you, puts things in your path that will make you feel rejected. When I was a young officer in the battalion, we were deployed to Bosnia. We had to send out a platoon to Fonica at a hospital for disabled children that had been abandoned because of the war. So we got wind that all the staff of the hospital had left the children there because they were under attack and they would have lost their lives. And so we sent a platoon. They had been abandoned for about 3-4 days, we think. We sent a platoon, and it took this platoon 2 days to get there. It was less than 2 hours away. But because of landmines, because of checkpoints, because of obstacles, it took them a good day and a half to get there. And by the time they got there, it was a mess. Children had been abandoned for close to 6 days. 6 of the children, three of the babies had died. 1 had started eating his own hand. They had been in their crate for the entire time with no food, nothing. They had really been abandoned. And so our soldiers, some of whom were 19, 20 years old, had to don on their gas mask to take care of these children, to clean up the mess, and to start making sense of it all. And when I got there, the soldiers had done a really, really good job cleaning up the place. It took me a good, almost a half day to get there finally. And what I saw were children that were severely handicapped. Some of them had 2 rows of teeth. Some had no nose. Some were severely mentally handicapped, others physically. And I thought, my goodness, these poor children have not had it easy in life. Not only that, but they've been abandoned by parents and now by the staff of this hospital. And then I also realized, as I was hugging every single one of them, that the universe has protected these children. While other children are seeing the devastation of war and bodies and death and losing their parents, these children are absolutely oblivious to what's going on around them. And they were happy. They were happy with the little that we could give them from the UNHCR convoy, the human rights convoy that delivered food. And they were happy. And so sometimes when the universe sends you something that you think has been rejection, it's actually a form of protection. And I can say the same about my military career. When I left the military, I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. All I had ever wanted since the age of 13 was to be in the infantry and be in the airborne. I left, I became a director. I had 158 engineers working for me at Bombardier Aerospace. I thrived, I loved it, and I made peace with this new career. And I had an opportunity to work with the Pearly and Rideau, which is where I met Catherine, actually. A year ago, really quickly, I became a member of the Board of Governors for the Pearly Rideau. And we have 40 female veterans that are at this retirement home. They have never been celebrated. And when I asked why there had never been an International Women's Day celebration, they said, well, they weren't combatants. I said, what do you mean they weren't combatants? Well, they were nurses and radio operators. And I said, people, not all the battles were fought on the battlefield. These are our pioneers. They paved the way for the likes of me to have a military career. We are going to give them a hell of a celebration. And we did. Thanks in part to Catherine and Jamila and people who gathered and celebrated these pioneers. The last lesson that I learned through this journey is that you cannot find peace until you forgive. When I went to see the psychologist for the first time in my life, she says, you have PTSD. And I said, no, I don't. I wrote this book. I forgave all those guys a long time ago. I think I need my thyroid gland checked. I think it's hormones. I'm at that age, I think I'm having a hot flash right now. I think it's a tooth that broke. I think mercury's escaping and somehow it's making me crazy. And I learned that I really, truly had forgiven all those men that had hurt me. But I had not forgiven myself for having let them do those things, for having not been strong enough to continue and pursue the career that I've always wanted, to not have kicked a few of them in the balls. It took a long time for me to come to terms that I carried that with me. And it was time for me to have compassion for myself on this journey. Now that brings me to my last point. And I say it's the first time I'm in a room full of women, and it's incredible. I want to tell you that women veterans don't have this. This is foreign to us. You see, military women, they go from base to base to base every 2-3 years. They don't get to develop that network. And then when they transition out of the military, it's a whole new world. They've just spent their whole life finding a new doctor, buying a new house, finding a new school for their kids. And they don't have this network of women. This is what I want to give them now in the transitioning phase when they leave the military, so that they are healthy civilians. I leave you with this message, especially for women. We need to be better mentors to one another. You know, women, we have a very unique gift. We are really good at helping each other through the certain phases of our life. Our first period, our first heartbreak, our first pregnancy, even menopause. You know, I can even say menopause and there's no reaction. Wow. I'm actually at that phase now where my two best friends are a little bit older, and they're guiding me through that and explaining to me why I'm going to have hairs on my chin and why when I laugh, tears run down my legs. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I love it. No, well, not the tears part, but just having women coaching me through this phase. So why don't we do it at work? Why are we our worst enemies at work, especially in non-traditional fields like engineering and technology and math and science and military and defense? Why are we our own worst enemies? There's several reasons. First of all, because we've never learned how to be mentors to one another. We've been taught to compete. It works well for men. It works for them. It doesn't work for us. We need to promote one another and mentor and coach and be confidants and supporters and cheerleaders and sisters in arms. We need to do that. We have been really good in the last couple years at making men feel guilty with these Me Too movements, at not championing women. Well, you know what? It's time for us to champion one another. We hold the key to be game changers in the equity and equality movement. We need to be the mentors that we never had. And I'm going to leave you with one last point. Recently, I was at the Ottawa Writers' Festival, and I got called out. A woman in the room said, "Why aren't you angrier and more resentful for what the military has done to you? You lost your career." And the answer I gave this woman was, believe me, there were days when I left the military that I was so angry I could have single-handedly invaded a small communist country like China. But all that would lead me to would be ulcers and hatred and just poison in my life. I've turned that into a passion to help female veterans, to help wounded warriors and soldiers, to support our troops. They deserve it. I know more than most the sacrifices that the men and women make to defend our country, and they deserve all our admiration and respect. Bravo, Zulu, to them, but also to you, women who agree to commit to being better mentors to one another. Thank you for inviting me here today.
They turned you off? Jay, where's your sound?
Turn me.
Thank you. Oh, you guys. Thanks. I think they oversold me. My job really here today is to introduce an incredible woman who we all know. But I would like to take this opportunity just to say a couple words. I did speak here as Catherine. You all know Catherine Landry. Everyone's just saying Catherine. Catherine Landry, this powerhouse networker and promoter of everything local in Ottawa. She's involved in so much, and I think we should be so grateful, because without Catherine, I don't think this group would have been assembled. She was really the woman, the catalyst, who saw a need in our community, and she's done so much work, and she's been able to you know, encourage and entice people to support her, and we're very grateful for that. So I did speak at Ladies at Lunch several years ago after I had lost my husband. That was traumatic enough, but you know, I did have this other little event that happened almost 3 years ago when I was abruptly terminated from my job. But you know, that was an awful day. But what I have learned over the years is that everything happens for a reason. And I'm only starting after, it's coming up to 3 years in November, but I'm only really starting to understand what the silver lining in that event is for me. And what I am discovering is that really who I am. Because when I went to CJOH in 1989, I had already been working in several different stations across the country. And it was always my dream when I grew up in Pembroke to work with Max. But when I was studying journalism, very few women were in the field. So I didn't really have any mentors who were pulling me up. And I was basically scrambling for myself. And when I got to CJOH, I had never worked for a female news person, news director, or anything like that. And here I am, I'm working with more males. So we didn't have mentors. I didn't have anyone to look up to. My boss was also my co-anchor. So I was guarded in a lot of things. I didn't have anyone to share with, so I was guarded in the way I approached my job and approached my life. I was always just feeling very lucky, really lucky to have this position. And I think women will understand that when you get to somewhere that you really want to go, you feel like it was luck. I didn't really recognize that I had things that they wanted in this job, that I had value, that I was good at something, and that's really a big part of the reason I was there. I just felt luck and fate, and I happened to take the right steps along the way. So when I was working with Max, and you know Max was like, he was Mr. Community. He did everything in the community, and he was an icon. And I never really realized when I was working with him that I too had an important role in the newscast. I always deferred to, it was Max's newsroom, Max's show, and I was sort of like the sidekick, you know, like that commercial, what's the it's rice and something. I was like the sidekick. I always felt I was the sidekick. So I don't think I really understood the importance of the job that I did. And it was only after I was let go, when the community came out to support me, that I realized that my role there every night at 6 o'clock was significant and valued. And the community really helped validate me, and I am so very, very appreciative of that, and I will never forget it. But in the time since I was laid off, what I've been discovering is that who I am without a Max keeping, that the community helped me determine that, yeah, I had something to give. And so I tipped my toes into social media, and I tried a radio job, but I kept coming back to doing things in the community. And this gets me to where I am today. I think I was brave when I went into journalism, because what little girl in Pembroke is ever going to amount to anything, especially in journalism? Well, I got there. But what I'm saying is that everything happens for a reason. I lost my job, I tried things out, I was learning and, you know, finding myself, and I don't know if I would have done that if I had been working still, but I determined that I have something to give, and one day I just woke up and I thought, I need to do something with people. I still need to do something with the community. And then when somebody called and said, you have to run for this political office, which is councillor for the city of Ottawa, it was like the light bulb went off. I said, this is it. This is what I should be doing, and I'm in the position now to do it. So what I want to tell you is that I didn't have mentors in journalism, but what I'm discovering today is that there are so many ways that we as women can support each other today because of organizations like Ladies Who Lunch. But most of my time I'm spent with powerful women. I spend with powerful groups of women who are doers, who make decisions, who drive agendas, who are giving to the community and their families. And these are the women that I think that I would like to tap today. Because when you run for political office, and because this is my first time doing it, I wasn't aware of how much you need support. You need support in the community to have volunteers to help canvass with you, to put up lawn signs, to, fundraise, things like that. And as I'm learning, I'm going to be talking to more and more young women because I'm going to be in a position. I didn't feel like I was in a position when I was co-anchoring to mentor anyone because I was just lucky to have my job. But now, looking back from what I've learned, is that I'm going to be looking back, and I don't have anyone to, well, I do have people actually, strong women, Diane Deans and Jan Harder and Marjorie LeBreton and Lisa McLeod and all kinds of women who are doing the job have been holding their hand out to me. What I'm going to do in the future is look back. And I want to pull other women with me. When I go to the door, I encourage, I say if there's a young girl, a teenager, look I'm doing this for the first time in my 60s, and I'm hoping that someday when you're in your 30s, that you will consider that this is an option. This is an option. So it's a very simple message, but it's taken me a long time to learn. I've always been slow to the game, though. But that was part of getting to know myself. Always slow on the uptake of many, many things, but it's me. And this me is running for City Council. So, thank you. I love speaking in front of women. But anyway, wish me all the best. Pardon? Anyone in my ward? I'm becoming shameless in my promotion. Gloucester South Nepean. And if you'd like a lawn sign, if you'd like to donate, go to my website, carolanmeehan.ca. Okay, but really, thank you so much for your love and support because I'd be nothing without it. I'm so glad to be alive and kicking and to feel the best I've ever felt in my whole life. I'm serious. I've never been happier. Never been happier. And when you find your passion, you know it. When you find your passion, you're going to feel that too. So look to someone for help because we are there, and look behind for the woman behind you that needs that hand up. Let's all do it together. And we'll go to put more women in office, in councils, on boards, in newsrooms, because we're the doers. We are the doers. So thank you to Catherine for collecting us all together, and thank you for listening. I don't know how I ended up with this job, but it is my extreme privilege to introduce our second guest speaker here this afternoon. This woman, I met really for the first time today, yet I thought I knew her personally because I have spoken to Tina Boileau over the radio. I've read her story in the newspapers, as all of you have. You've seen, Jonathan Petra's story. This woman, well, there really are no words to describe what Tina has gone through, what Jonathan went through. As a mother, we always want just the best for our children. We want them to be healthy and happy. And Tina got a little boy, the most incredible little boy, but with an incredible health challenge. And we, as mothers, will do anything for our children. But I think what Tina and Jonathan went through is so extraordinary. Jonathan had EB, which is an incurable skin disease, and he endured a lot of pain. But he wasn't just a regular little kid who was suffering. He was a kid on a mission. And the woman who was beside him on that mission to draw attention to this disease was his mom, Tina. As a lot of us here are mothers, you can understand. I always put myself in Tina's position when I would read her story after I talked to her and thinking, if that were me, would I have that strength? Would I be able to get up every day and put one foot forward and to help Jonathan promote this cause while tending to his needs? And she put everything on hold as Tina, had to, but wanted to, because Tina is love. She has love for her child. She's taught us all a lesson about how to give, to love, and to set example. I think she taught us all what a mother can do, what a mother has to do. Sadly, that the outcome was not what we had hoped for. We'd all prayed for a miracle. But we had a miracle, and his name is Jonathan. And we have a miracle in our midst here today. And she's a mother, and she's brave, and we're proud of her, and you've inspired us, Tina. Come on up.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay. Thank you. Well, Sandra, you made a bit of a joke of saying you had tears running down your legs. Well, I have tears running down my cheeks. I already know I can't look at that table at all because my sister's in the room. I was very happy to be at the background, to be Jonathan's driver. Sorry. You made me cry. I was always very happy to be behind Jonathan, and because that was Jonathan's dream. And I had told him when he was 12 that I was going to help him achieve what he wanted. He's no longer there. Buddy, I hope I make you proud. Tomorrow will be a better day. That is what my son, Johnny, and I kept us going for the last 18 years, and more specifically, the last 2 in Minnesota. Johnny taught me to never give up, and to believe that although the situation is at its bleakest, giving up is not an option. Some days were so difficult that we were living hour by hour, sometimes even minute by minute. Johnny also taught me to find strength in different people and ideas. Even after his passing, his words and beliefs stay with me. There are days where just getting out of bed is more than I can fathom. But I keep asking myself, what would Johnny say or do? His words always come to mind. Tomorrow will be a better day. Let's be honest. Some days, I don't even believe that tomorrow is going to be a better day, that it will ever get better. But Johnny's words keep me coming back to me. I keep hearing his voice telling me it will get better, even when I don't want to listen. In his memory, I keep repeating those words when I need to remind myself better days are ahead. I even have it tattooed on me just as a reminder. We all have our inner strength to help us through our darkest days, hours. We only have to find what our motivating factor is and what keeps us going. For me, it's my son's words. I keep going for my beautiful daughter, my family, and my friends. When I leave this earth, I want to be remembered as a nurturing mother and loving sister and friend. My inner strength that I found in Johnny's words keep me pushing to accomplish this ultimate goal of being the best person I can be. In 2012, when my son's story became public for the first time in a beautiful piece written by Andrew Duffy called The Inner Steel of a Butterfly Child. The publication of his story in the Ottawa Citizen was the first time my son and I had spoken about his lifelong condition, epidermolysis bullosa, or EB for short. The subsequent article published in 2014 entitled Butterfly Child Dreams of the Northern Lights, an accompanying video, is what really introduced Johnny into becoming the face of EB, an inspiration to many, a local hero, my hero. A young man who suffered unnecessarily and unfairly all of his life, yet possessed such strength, wisdom, and selflessness as he led the charge to bring global EB awareness and support. The outpouring of love and kindness that followed from Jonathan showing EB in its true form was overwhelming, to say the least. He made himself vulnerable to the world, exposing me open wounds that resembled third-degree burns that covered more than 85% of his body and how it impacted his life. But the thing that was the most staggering was his joie de vivre, his smiling face, and seeing how he enjoyed his life. God, he loved to live despite the challenges he faced, and he did it so gracefully. We had and still have people from all walks of life reaching out to us. Some wanted to share their stories. Others offered their time, gifts, donations, and many presented a variety of methods in an attempt to alleviate his pain. The list is outstanding. We went from being normal citizens that generally blended into the background to being recognized on the streets, in restaurants, grocery stores. Being in the public eye took some getting used to, especially after Johnny passed away. By then, we had become even more public, and everyone wanted to share their grief with me. Over the years, Jonathan had become the son and the brother of everyone in the Ottawa region. Jonathan's openness to share with the world the ups and downs of his battle with EB gave people hope for brighter days. Most people, even the ones he had never met, fostered strong connections to him. The positive that came from Jonathan's story being shared by the different media outlets has been immeasurable. We took a little-known disease and have increased its awareness tenfold. A condition that was never heard of is now making top national news. Other children suffering from EB are getting the attention necessary to help them to get adequate treatments. Education and understanding of EB has helped eliminate some barriers in our healthcare system. Schools, workplaces, making it a little more bearable for the EB community and their families. DEBRA, the Dystrophic Epidermolysis Research Association, the only nonprofit organizational body in Canada exclusively committed to the care and support of families affected by EB and to improve their quality of life, has seen its donations, supporters, and volunteers increase. Acknowledging EB and the people that suffer from this horrendous condition is a great start. But we can't stop there. We need a cure. If you're among the people who were touched by my son or another disease out there, I encourage you to support the organizations doing the work on the ground to make it better for the warriors and their survivors. Help spread the word about them. Donate and volunteer. Even donate blood. Jonathan had numerous needed blood. He needed platelets. I was his donor 3 times. I could do it 3 times within a year. If we could all do it, we could save many lives. These are all small steps, but effective steps that we can all make a difference. I became involved with DEBRA Canada because my son so desperately wanted to be a part of the organization after being guest speakers at the DEBRA International in 2012. Because you have to be 18 to be on the board of directors, I did what anybody would do. I got involved. And I signed up to be a volunteer. I knew nothing about charitable work, but on the other hand, my years of experience at caring for an EB child and dealing with everything that came with it gave me valuable experience that served me well in my role with the foundation. This was my chance to give back to my community, to give a chance to Jonathan and to help others like him, and maybe get in onto the treatments that were available. I've always been a very private person about my personal life. Even my neighbors had no idea what was hiding under Jonathan's dressings. It was never out of shame, but mostly because I was trying to avoid the looks of pity and having to explain myself. It's only once we decided to make Jonathan's story public in the Ottawa Citizen that people around me got a very good picture of our lives with EB and the many struggles it entails. I was wrong to think I could do it alone. Everyone needs a friendly ear or a helping hand every now and again. As the saying goes, it takes a village to raise children. No man, woman, or family is an island. By identifying people in your life who can be reliable sources of support and comfort, you can be reassured that there is someone to turn to when you need help and weather the storms of life. I've been very fortunate to have a very supportive family, network of friends, and coworkers that may not always understand all aspects of my life with EB, but that are there for me at a moment's notice. Unfortunately, that kind of support is lacking from the lives of a lot of people. If you want that kind of support, the place to begin is with ourselves. Community, like charity, begins at home. When you start building a good neighborhood, in order to build a good neighborhood, you yourself have to decide to become a good neighbor. While there's a lot of good that comes from being seen and heard, there's also an invisible cost at being among the few people who are willing to share their story publicly. I realized that I should be blissful after living the wonderful experiences that were offered to my son and me, such as having the occasional brush with really important public figures and attending real great sporting events. I can appreciate that this can create an image that being a low-level pseudo-celebrity is glamorous. I think it's time for some real talk about the people who are fighting the good fight in the public eye. In the age of media, it can be really easy to have your life look good while your life is a lot starker. As I trek through the year that has been more than a few heartbreaking moments marked by the passing of my son, getting back to a life that I hadn't been a part in for almost 2 years, with everything that made sense in complete havoc. Trying to pick up where I left off, rebuilding relationship with my daughter and my loved ones without him by my side. I think this is the hardest part of what my life is, and it will never be normal again. I wear many different hats. I'm a mother. I'm a hockey mom. I'm an EB mom. I'm a full-time employee. I'm the president of a charity. I'm a friend. I'm a sister. And my most recent one, I'm kiddoed. But once all of those hats are removed, I'm no different than any one of you. When you look at a person, any person, remember that everyone has a story, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's what makes you you. This is what made me me.